Welcome to Medcan Presents. That's the health and wellness webinar series that happens every other Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Today is January 26th. It's 12:30. My name is Christopher Shulgan. I'm part of the team that creates content here at Medcan. Today's webinar is stretches to get you through your workday. Everybody's working in unusual circumstances. Work from home has us maybe in the kitchen, on a stool, at the bar, maybe you're at your dining room table, maybe you're at your couch or in the bed in your master bedroom. I've worked at all of those places, I think. And people, I think, are experiencing neck pain. They're experiencing back pain as a result. So Marlo Goldstein comes to the rescue. That's with this webinar. And Marlo Goldstein is the case manager for Medcan's pain management program. She's a fitness trainer. She's a sports rehabilitation therapist and a registered kinesiologist who has completed a master's degree in sports therapy from London Metropolitan University in England. Today, Goldstein will walk webinar attendees through an hour-by-hour workday schedule of stretches, exercises, and other techniques designed to promote a healthy posture, especially for those working from home. Marlo Goldstein, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm gonna, so why don't we, before we do anything, why don't we go through the poll? So we have this fun little poll, and ladies and gentlemen, you can go through. So one thing, go through, and if you have worked in a particularly unusual place, we want to hear about it. So you can use your chat function to tell us about that. You can also submit questions at the end of this through the Q&A function. So since the start of the pandemic, where have you worked? So 76% of the respondents have worked in their home office. So guest bedroom, 11%. Child's bedroom, 0. In my own bedroom, on the bed, 8%. On the couch in my living room, 18%, dining room table, 34%, kitchen, 18%, and then nobody in the garage. At my actual work site, 8%. That's great. Thanks for responding, everyone. And Marlo, you have actually a great story about getting injured through working from home. Why don't we start with that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because only 8% of people are working in their bedroom. And as you mentioned, I'm a personal trainer and I manage chronic pain patients at Medcan. And so I was used to running around Medcan all day long. I was always on my feet moving around. And when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden I'm at home and I never even really thought about it for a second. I was like, okay, I have a laptop, but I'll do a lot of my stuff from my cell phone and I'll just prop it up or put my computer up on my windowsill in my bedroom. And I decided to sit on the floor. And I was sitting with my leg kind of rotated. And all of a sudden, after like 3-4 weeks of sitting like that, I had some really bad back pain. And so I went to go see a chiropractor from Medcan. And she says to me, you've been sitting in the same position for long periods of time. You need to really get up and move. And I actually very much injured my SI joint, which then took, me to another place that I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to go sit at my island. I don't know why I thought not to sit at my kitchen table. I mean, my apartment, I have a 2-bedroom apartment. I don't have a home office because I never thought I'd be there. So I'm sitting at my island on the chair and like my feet are kind of on that. There's like a little stool there at the bottom where you can put your feet, but I'm not really wearing socks and I'm not really wearing shoes. And so I'm sitting there for a while and all of a sudden like my back, my rear and my feet are starting to hurt. And I said to my husband, like, why are my feet hurting? And he's like, well, maybe just from, you're not wearing shoes, you're not used to it. So yeah, I got really injured. And it's interesting because over time, we've really thought that at first it was about the ergonomic chair. Everything was about find the best chair, have the best, office with a great chair, that will reduce neck and back pain. And over time, we realized that actually the ergonomic chair didn't really help that many people with neck and back pain who had it. And then all of a sudden, sitting was the new smoking. God, you should never sit. Everybody should be standing. So everyone started getting standing desks. And, people were standing in the same position for hours and hours and hours at work. But because they were standing, they thought, it's fine. And we realized over time that that actually did not reduce any neck or back pain either for people who had it. And so then all of a sudden, people started getting into this more holistic approach, and it was about the sit stand desk. And the reason why that now actually does help is because people are not being sedentary in the same position for hours at a time. So my back was hurting not because I was just sitting on the floor, but because my leg was twisted in a position that my body didn't like, but also I wasn't moving from that position at all at any point. And same thing when I moved to the island. I was still sitting there for 12 hours a day, not moving. And so,
well, so that brings up an interesting point, which is, I think the conventional wisdom out there is all about, you have to spend like $5,000 on a perfect chair that gives you the perfect posture. And then, or maybe you're sitting on an exercise ball. And then the desk is really important. And actually, so what you're saying is pretty revolutionary, which is it doesn't actually really matter precisely where you are so long as you switch it up. Right? That's essentially the big takeaway.
Correct. And Dr. Andy Miners, who I've worked with for a really long time, who runs our sports therapy and rehab department at Medcan, he, sees a lot of patients, and so do I. And I remember him always giving this example. Okay. So he takes his finger and he pushes it back and he says, if I held my finger like this for long periods of time, in the short term, my finger would adapt. So, I wouldn't really, it wouldn't really bother me too much in the short term. I could hold this and it would be fine. But over time, if I held this position, let's just say 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, ongoing, what would start to happen was I would start to get really achy, soreness. The finger would get fatigued because this is not where it likes to be. And same thing if I held it down here. So if I held it in the same position, it would still, short term, it would be okay. But after a while, it would get achy and sore. And the reason for that is because you start adapting, but then over time, the muscles just can't handle it. So yes, it's really important that we try not to be in these sedentary positions and we start moving around. And at this time, unfortunately, during COVID, people are, doing things that they, okay, they're still working as many hours as they were before, but their situation has changed. They're not going for lunch. You're not standing up and, going for a walk with a colleague and getting a coffee. You're probably working longer hours because your computer's in front of you. You're already at home. People are booking work calls. The clients that I'm working with, they're starting now at 6:37 in the morning and they're working all the way up to 9 o'clock because people are just booking to their schedule because they're home.
Yeah. Like if I compare my previous, like getting to school ordeal, I would say ordeal versus, it's like, okay, take the dog for a walk, make sure the kids are in their winter stuff, race around getting one kid to school, getting another kid to school, race because probably I have a meeting right at 9 a.m. I'm racing to the office. And then so actually that time from like 8 to 9 has almost been a workout that sets me up actually for a long period. Now, though, most of the time I'm just sitting, it starts at 6:30 with my coffee at the bar and I'm sending emails and then I actually don't move from there for a long time. And I think most people are doing similar.
And I just had a client who told me today, I usually commute from 7:30 to like 8:30. And now I just get up out of bed and, I get ready and I have a meeting now at 7:30. So that time where we're up and walking and moving and allowing our body to kind of unstiffen is not happening anymore. So a lot of things have changed with us being, at home during COVID. And so I think really, the question is like, how do we have a healthier workday? And it takes a lot of effort and focus to actually make these changes happen, because it's very easy to get stuck into patterns where you're like, yeah, I get up, I sit at my desk, and I don't really leave my desk until 12 hours later. So I think, one reason why I'm really happy to be here is because, I want to try to give clear, easy, simple things that people can do during the day where they can kind of mentally feel better, physically feel better, and actually over time, you will work harder, feel stronger and just feel physically better in general. So
one more thing before we start, before we segue into the sort of the hour by hour part of this, which is, so I think a lot of people have expected to come in here and to have you say, don't work at your couch or don't work on your bed. Don't, that where you're working is important. And actually you would say that where you're working isn't really important. It's more how you're working, where you're working.
Correct. If you want to sit on your bed for a little bit of time because that's where you feel comfortable and you're, up against your kind of headboard and your laptop's in your lap, okay, and you want to do that for an hour or two, and that's fine. But after that, you need to stand up and you need to move around. And I try now to change my positions during the day. And so I want to talk about the 3 tips because I think the 3 tips is really important. And I want to try to hammer this into people who are really listening because I think this is a really good piece of advice that someone has given me. Dr. Miners talks about these all the time. And so the number one thing I really think we need to understand is the next posture is the best posture. So what does that mean? I'm sitting in this chair right now and I constantly am moving. Okay. So I'll sit on one side, I'll lean back a little bit. I'll sit on the other side. I'll move, I'll cross my legs. There's no problem with crossing your legs. I think at one point I remember people used to say oh, don't cross your legs. It's really bad for your hips. No, what's bad for your hips is sitting here all day long and not moving them at all. Or not, we used to have to sit up really, really nice and straight and, your mid back would start to hurt, but it's okay because as long as, your lower back and your neck aren't hurting, that's all fine. So the point of this is the next posture is the best posture. Move around. Even if you're in your chair and you don't have time to stand up because you're, on a Zoom call or you're a speaker, it is okay to actually switch side to side. So that's tip number 1. Okay. Tip number 2 is get up and move around more. So if you do have a stand desk, that'd be great. So you're kind of standing for an hour, then you decide to sit down, or maybe even 2 or 3 hours because your body's feeling good. Think about your workspace and what that looks like. So do you have an opportunity to get wireless earbuds? So that way, if you're not like the speaker on the call, maybe you can put the wireless earbuds in, you can stand up, you can kind of pace around your apartment and still be an active participant in your Zoom call, but you don't have to be sitting down in front of, the camera every second. Or the question is, can you get a camera that moves? So a lot of chiros and physios who are doing work online or virtual or even trainers, they have cameras that kind of move around with them, which is very cool. I don't have that, but you buy one and it sits on top of your laptop. You're kind of showing somebody something over there. The camera switches and moves around for you. So, those things are really good, but I think that also leads us back to the same thing I just said, which is the next posture is the best posture. Okay. And then there's tip number 3, which is about mini break. So I used to tell my clients all the time back in the day, and I still try to tell them this now, every 30 minutes, print something. Now, obviously we don't, there's a whole thing about printing paper and we're not going to get into that right now, but print something or go get some water or go get a coffee or stand up and just move around, move your arms around. And there's some stretches that I'm going to take you through that I'll show you, but do something that gets you standing up. But again, that goes back to really tip number 1, which is the next posture is the best posture.
Can we go back to, wait, let me see. So the next posture is the best posture. Okay. Yeah. So now we're going to go back to number 3 again.
Yeah. So the mini breaks are great, but again, it goes back to the same one. The next posture is the best posture. Move around. Your body will literally feel better for it. So, and we always say, so one big thing that I think we'll talk about when we're talking about the typical workday, and one thing also that I want to really get across is that we are constantly doing things that are forward bent. Okay. So we're driving in a car, we're forward. We're doing our work at a computer, we're forward. we're on a cell phone, we're forward typing. Our heads are constantly down. Okay. We're constantly, and now Peloton and, exercising on a bike is like really, people are like really into that right now. What is that? That's also forward. Okay. Like on a bike, you're forward. So one thing I think it's really important to get across is that we want to do the opposite when we're stretching.
So you're totally making me like, I'm like, I was totally hunched over and now, but actually I should be sort of like every so often I should be like this.
Correct. Like, and this is what I tell a lot of people. So
like actually stand up and be like,
okay, exactly that. So, I always say, like, we don't need you to be stiff. It's not important that you sit there stiff all day long. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. Again, I'm telling you to move around as much as possible. But what I am saying is because we're constantly forward bent
in this fetal position.
Exactly. And your head's kind of in this forward posture movement, which creates a lot of lengthening in the back. And we can get into that another time about kind of putting a dowel in the 3-point touch and ears over shoulders over hips. We can talk about that another time. But what we want is we want exactly that. So we want people to stretch the other way. So interlock your fingers, draw them down in front of you, reach them up over your head, look up, don't break your back when you're leaning back, okay? It's like only a tiny little bit. So lean back a little bit and like open up this way, backwards. So we want you to do the opposite of what you're doing all day long. A lot of people, when they have neck and back pain, they're like, oh, I got to stretch this way. And they always are stretching forward and they're reaching forward and they're bending their head forward. And I'm like, okay, opposite. We want to open up our pecs, tighten up our core, strengthen our glutes, and really tighten up our mid back so that those muscles in the mid back pull our shoulders back. We don't want to constantly be in a lengthened position at the back, which is this way, and a shortened position at the front, which is this way. We want to be as neutral as possible. That's where our muscles work the best. So we really want to try to open up and stretch backwards. That's what will make our body feel really good. Okay, so then when we can get into the workday, and then we can start talking about like they're just some tips on what you can do, in a typical day. And we'll give some advice. We'll show some exercises and we'll take it from there. Okay, so these are just small pieces of advice that we wanted to give you throughout a typical workday of things that you can do. But again, like I said, if there's a couple of messages that I want you to take away from this, one of them is the next posture is the best posture. And the second is do the opposite of what you've been doing all day long. Okay. So when you wake up in the morning, you've been sleeping for 8 hours. Okay. You've been stiff. You haven't been moving. So if you're noticing that when you get up and you like walk down the stairs and your knees are feeling a little like crickety and your body just feels like it hasn't woken up, it's because it hasn't. So, you want to start getting some blood flow. You want those ligaments and those muscles and those tendons to all wake up. So again, the key message is do the opposite of what you've been doing at that time. So what have you been doing? You've been lying stiff all morning. So even small things like rolling your ankles, okay? Bend your knees in bed, maybe drop them side to side in the morning, maybe like just give yourself a big stretch in bed and just like start moving around a little bit, okay? And spinal mobility is something that we talk about first thing in the morning because, when you are really stiff, you want to go slow and steady. You don't need to do these big grandiose movements. Everything can be slow and steady so that the body can just start adapting and start waking up. So cat-camel rollback is something we give to a lot of people. You can't really get injured with it. There's no weights. It's all non-weighted, okay? So I'm just going to take you guys with me here to the edge of the desk here, and I'm going to go onto the ground. So you get onto the ground in your bedroom. You're still in your pajamas, okay? You put your hands and your knees on the ground, and all you're going to do is just move your back up and down with your head. So head comes down, shoulders come up, bum gets tucked, and then the other way. And a lot of yogis will know how to do this because they do this all the time in yoga. So you move your head up and down, and then the rollback is where you go into child's pose. So again, people who do yoga, a lot of yoga will know this. You just want to reach your arms forward, okay? And if you want to feel, an extra little stretch, you can reach one arm to the side and press your shoulders into the ground.
Marlo, Marlo, talk louder a little bit because you're, and I had no idea how you were going to demonstrate that that works totally. That's perfectly. That's great.
Yeah. So, you can just literally, when you're on the floor, your bum goes down onto your heels. Your arms are going to be forward reached in front of you. And if you want to add a little bit of an extra stretch under your armpit, what you're going to do is you're just going to reach the arms to one side, and then you're going to hold, and then you're going to reach the arms to the other side. And you can hold that for about, 10, 15, 20 seconds where you feel comfortable, and it should feel good. So all of these things we're telling you to do, they should all feel good. You should not have any pain with any of this. And if you do, then go slow, go steady, and warm your body up slowly. Work to your level of capacity is really what the most important thing is also, But I think one good thing is, even if you don't want to get on the floor, like I'll tell you, my dad, who I adore, he will tell me I'm not getting on the floor, like zero chance. And he's hilarious. Like, he exercises through his job and all these things, but he will not get on the floor. So, he's not going to be doing something like that, but he would be more than happy to drop his knees side to side in bed, roll his ankles, give himself a big stretch in bed, and just kind of like even hug his knees up to his chest. And then he gets up and then he'll, get into the shower. So speaking about getting into the shower, heat is very good for muscles. Okay, as long as they're not inflamed. So muscles love heat. Now, it warms them up, makes them feel good. So like do some gentle mobility in the shower. Obviously, we again want to be really careful. Okay, we want to make sure we're not injuring ourselves, but like small things like neck rolls one way, then neck rolls the other way, grabbing your head this way, forwards and backwards. Maybe you can stretch your pec on the wall. So like you just literally reach behind you, put your hand on the wall, okay, and open up your chest. So like shoulder rolls in the shower, maybe like, just some small little easy twisting, that kind of stuff. So anything that makes you feel comfortable in the shower is going to be totally fine, as long as it's gentle and it's easy and it's not too heavy and you're working within your capacity.
Okay, shall we move? We'll move on to because I want to take questions.
No problem.
With this too. So
okay. So what we're going to do, so we'll talk about the midday, okay? Just remember, after you get to your workstation, like try to make it so that your workstation is working for you, like earbuds, and don't forget about the camera. At 10 a.m., you've kind of probably been sitting there for a long period of time. So the question is, what have you been doing? You've been sitting forward hunch. So again, you want to do the opposite of what you've been doing. So Y's to T's to A's, really simple. You can sit here and do them. This is a Y to W. Easy.
Wait, yeah. So I didn't understand that. So Y's, T's, and A's are up.
Yeah. So this is a Y to W. So like I always tell people to do this even if they're sitting, because it just gets your shoulder blades moving. And it's great. It should feel good. You should feel your muscles working as you do this. If you did this 15 times every hour, you would feel your muscles working. And then T's is just where your palms are up, always in a hitchhiking position, thumbs up, move your arms back. And then if you want to do the A's, you can just do them here, like literally just like reaching behind you, anything that opens up your pecs. You can do some lunges, like where you put 1 foot back, okay, behind you, 1 foot back, and then you kind of just like reach your hips forward a little bit, okay, like that. So you're like opening up your hip here. We can do some jumping jacks if you really wanted to, just to kind of get the blood flowing. And then you sit back down. So that would be like the 10 a.m. suggestion. And then you've probably been sitting for like a couple of hours from 10. It's now 12 o'clock, right? So it's like, okay, it's lunchtime. What am I going to do? I'm hoping that most of you will get up, take a minute to yourself, and get yourself some lunch and make sure that you're eating. Now we can get into all of that, but I'm not a dietitian, but I know like dietitians will tell you like it's really important to eat lunch. It helps you think better, think more clearly. So we want to make sure we're getting lunch. So you stand up, you go get your lunch, okay? Do you have an opportunity to get outside to go for a small little walk? Can you walk up and down your hallway a couple of times? But the other question is, what have you been doing for the last 2 hours? So you've been sitting down. So you want to do the opposite of that. And you want to do something different than what you did at 10. So like if I've been sitting with my legs flat and I'm, typing all day long, let's just say then I can maybe lift my legs up a little higher than they were before. So I'm going to stretch my knees up to my chest. Or I'm going to now do a little bit of like some kickbacks where, okay, I already did these lunges leaning forward. Okay, now I'm going to just strengthen my glutes a little bit. I'm just going to do some kickbacks. Maybe I just want to open up my hips a little. So you know what? I'm going to sit and then I'm going to stand. I'm going to do 10 squats, sit and stand. No problem. Right? So that's what you're going to do at 12. You're going to do something different than you were doing for the last 2 hours and something different than what you did at 10. And then 1 o'clock comes around. Again, you've already been sitting, so you ate your lunch. You might not feel like, okay, so 1:30, 2 o'clock comes around. You're like, okay, I'm going to take a mini break now. Literally, again, you can do some Y's to T's. Maybe you didn't do these before. Maybe you didn't do the T's. You can do some push-ups on the wall, right? Like very, very simple. I literally have a wall behind me. I stand up. I'm just going to do some push-ups on the wall. Again, I use my father as an example. My dad does I think 30 push-ups on the wall every day during work.
Wow,
And he's
good
up
for
and
him.
moving around the wall. Yeah, he just it's just become a pattern of behavior for him. So he, whenever he has a break, he goes to the wall and he does 30 push-ups.
Marlo, one thing that we don't have in this deck is so you say mini breaks every 40 to 60 minutes. Is that basically is 40 minutes as long as we should be working in any one position, or should we be fidgeting even within that 40 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely should be fidgeting within that 40 minutes. 40 minutes is a long time to be sitting in one position. So it would be great if you could stand up every 40 to 60 minutes and move around. I think that there's not a specific time. I couldn't sit, I exercise 5 days a week every morning, no questions asked. It's part of my job. My body is healthy. It feels okay. Obviously not for long periods of time, like sitting on the floor, but when I'm sitting at my desk, again, I'm constantly moving. So for me, 40 minutes is fine. And then once 40 to 60 minutes, I need to kind of just stand up. I need to move around and I can feel it. My body starts to feel tight and stiff and crampy. So I think it's all within your capacity. But again, if you're not used to it, what we want to do is we want to create behavior. So if you can put a timer every 40 minutes on your phone and you have the opportunity to stand up, that creates a behavior. And all of a sudden over time, after, 6 weeks doing that, you won't have to think about it that much. You'll just want to stand up because you'll start feeling like it's important to do that.
Okay, we'll keep going. We'll run through and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, no problem. So really, again, this is kind of going back to the same thing. You've been sitting all day, it's 5 o'clock. If you have the opportunity, it's time to disengage from your workstation and move around. Okay. Again, squats, push-ups, some lunges, go for a walk. An evening walk, I find I was doing that for a while at the beginning of COVID. And even now I try if I'm not working too late. It just clears my mind. It makes me feel really good to get some fresh air, be outside, not stuck and cramped in my home. It's a really nice thing. And I think it's really good for your mind and for your body. So if you have an opportunity to be at all near any park, I mean, those are all along the guidelines. Like we're allowed to go outside and go for a walk. So there's no reason why people can't do that. And fresh air is really good for you. It's good for your body and it's good for your mind. So we do advise that you should try to get outside at least once a day. And again, like work within your capacity. You know, the intensity doesn't have to be crazy brisk walk. It could just be a nice walk with, someone in your family that you live with. And so
That
that's
brings
the
us
kind
that
of,
brings us straight to the Health Canada recommendations.
yeah. So the Health Canada recommendations, I mean, I think everyone or most people have heard of them, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Now, obviously, you can work within that. So I've talked before about high intensity. If you are looking to do something a little bit more vigorous, then you can. You can do like 1 minute slow walk, 1 minute fast walk, or 1 minute of a little jog, 1 minute of a walk. So, you know, you want to try to get your heart rate up. We know that kind of decreases your chances of heart attack, stroke, and other problems in the future. So you do really, you can do cardio without having a treadmill or a bike at home. uh, and walking is a perfect example of that. Like, I'm telling you, if people try to speed walk for 1 minute, that will get your heart rate going. So anything
In
that does
our
high intensity.
so we're going to switch over to so there are some suggestions in our house. You talk about 40 minutes, like setting a timer for 40 minutes. The Sean Francis book, in the Eat Move Think book, there's a bit about how to be more productive, and you are supposed to use a timer and work for 25 minutes. They call it a Pomodoro because the original person who used the timer, it was a tomato timer. The guy was Italian. Italian for tomato is Pomodoro. And so you do a Pomodoro, a 25-minute stint of work, and then take a 5-minute break,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
So this is really conducive to this system where you're working kind of intensely for a little bit, and then taking a break and sort of moving around, doing push-ups, doing whatever you want, squats, air squats.
Yeah, and people might think to themselves like, "Oh, really? Is that going to make a difference?" But the truth is that the research has proven that it does make a difference. And you feel better for longer and you are able to work for longer over time because you've taken care of yourself when you should have. So doing those, my dad does those 20 push-ups a day. I mean, it makes him stronger and it makes his shoulder stronger and it makes his back a little bit stronger. And even though he's not doing like crazy amounts of exercise, that those small 2 minutes of push-ups makes a big difference in his life over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone has suggested use the washroom on a different level. I think that's a great, just move, because we're not getting these, even if you think about the coffee break, so let's say you had a Starbucks run and you had to go to the elevator, you went down, you went to the Starbucks across the street, in the building across the street, or in the path or whatever. And then you came back up, and that's movement. And
yeah, that was like great. People used to do that all the time, right? Like they were and they wouldn't even think about it. It's not like they were like, oh, I gotta really like move around. Everyone was just like, hey, you want to grab a coffee? Or they would always, the path used to be packed with people who were grabbing lunch. So even people who didn't have time to move that much around during the day, they were always standing up for that one 15-minute or 20-minute walk where they were going, getting their lunch, strolling back. And that makes a difference.
So to summarize, essentially, there is no single, if we were going to go through Dr. Andy Miner's 3 points to remember, there is no single, we'll just take 2 minutes. We'll run through these. We'll run through what's coming up, and then we'll wrap. There is no single best place to work or best posture, right? Why don't you run us through just really quickly the Dr. Andy Miner's 3 tips?
Yeah. So the 3 tips are really one tip in 3 different pieces of advice. 1, the next posture is the best posture. Move around in your chair. Okay? Switch your legs up, change sides. 2, get up, walk around, go to the bathroom on a different floor. walk to get some water, go up and down your hallway, walk around your island once or twice, pick up your laptop, put it in a different place, stand maybe for half an hour, then go back to sitting. And the third one is taking mini breaks. Every 40 to 60 minutes, or if you want earlier, get up and do some stretching. Take those breaks, clear your mind for a second, let your body relax for a second. Maybe you want to do like 1 minute of like mindful meditation where you just close your eyes, you're not talking, you're not thinking about anything else, and you're just trying to like calm down. And then get up and move around for a second. Give yourself and your body a break. So those are the 3 really important tips.
Fantastic. Okay, so I will walk us through what we have coming up. Let me just do, okay, so the next Medcan Presents Future webinar is Women in Heart Health. So February is Heart Health Month, and then February 13th is Wear Red for Women Day to raise awareness about the toll of cardiovascular disease on women in terms of heart health. So heart health is within the reach of everyone with the proper lifestyle choices. However, women are underdiagnosed, undertreated, and understudied when it comes to cardiovascular disease. So Medcan cardiologist Dr. Beth Abramson provides female-forward recommendations on cardiovascular disease prevention and treatment. And the webinar serves as a valuable reminder for all Canadians, but especially Canadian women, to be mindful, curious, and proactive in the management of our heart health and wellness. So how to register. So Medcan Social will be, inundating the social media platforms with this. But anyway, bit.ly/women's-heart-health. And you can find past webinars at youtube.com/MedcanLiveWell. Medcan presents other resources. So the latest in honor of upcoming Heart Health Month, we have How to Prevent Heart Disease with Dr. Beth Abramson. That's Eat, Move, Think podcast episode 50. And that's Beth Abramson talks about the latest in preventive cardiology. And you can find that bit.ly/F50-preventive-cardiology. Okay, amazing. Marlo, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I wasn't sure how you were going to demonstrate all this stuff, and then you just hit it out of the park. So there have been there was more footage of the torso in this webinar than any other webinar ever, but it's amazing. It's amazing.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And if anyone has any questions, they can reach me at, Marlo Goldstein at medcan.com. I'm happy to answer any questions for anyone. We have an amazing sports therapy and rehab department with Dr. Eddie Miners and, the whole team there with chiros and physios and chiropodists and massage therapists. And we have a fantastic personal training department with like 43 personal trainers. I'm on both teams. So I'm really happy to help anybody if they ever have a question or need anything.
Okay, one last thing, because actually that is maybe the highest value thing of this wrap up, which is if you have been injured by, because you've been holding your mouse too much and you get that knot in the back of your shoulder or whatever, you can virtual therapy through sports therapy and rehabilitation, right? Andy and everybody. Yeah, can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So the sports therapy and rehab department, at Medcan has a variety of different practitioners. So we have chiropractors, physiotherapists, chiropodists, massage therapists. We have everything that you could want here. And you have an option. You can either do it virtually or you can come in person. Everybody's, appropriate. It's safe. There's PPE. We follow very, very strict procedures here. So, you can just call into Medcan and make an appointment. You do not have to be a member to come in for a sports therapy and rehab appointment. And or they can do it virtually if you like. So that's an option. And then again, we have personal trainers. Most of our personal trainers are working virtually. So if you need anything, and you're confused or you don't know where to go, please send me an email to marlogoldstein@medcan.com. I would be more than happy to talk to you. We'll have a bit of a phone conversation as to what you need, and then I will help direct you in the path that you need to go, who I think you should see. And well, I've been here for 5 years. I've been managing chronic pain patients for a long time, so I definitely think I can help sort you out.
So we'll send out, Marlo, we'll send out your email in the, we do a follow-up email where we send the link to the YouTube archive, and then we'll send your email as well.
Great.
So
I'm
thank
happy
you
to
so much. Thanks to all webinar attendees. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for the next Medcan Presents webinar. Thanks so much, folks.